move to the Chancellor's report 2.11. Chancellor?
Thank you, President Bonilla. We have several items in the Chancellor report this week, but what I really want to begin with is to give an update on the CARES Act and then move into our presentation and discussion from Dr. Riggs from People Pros and talk about our November ACCJC special reports and then move into our PeopleSoft project update. So I would like to share with everyone, the board, the community, fellow colleagues, that we have a CARES update, CARES funding, and I have a prepared statement to provide for you. So on September 29th, 2020, that's today, in April of 2020, the colleges and universities were made aware of CARES, which is the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, and were given funds, in response to the devastation that's being caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Peralta's colleges received the following amounts. The College of Alameda received $1,049,170. Berkeley City College received $1,844,524. Laney College received $3,313,469. And Merritt College received $1,497,283. All told, the colleges and the district received $7,704,446. And of those amounts, 50% was allocated through the certification process to each of the colleges, and 50% was allocated as an institutional portion. Colleges and universities were to apply for funds through the grants.gov website. What this implied was that the ancillary clearinghouse of www.sams.gov had all the correct information for the applying institutions. In the case of the Peralta colleges, the information had not been updated for several years. This presented barriers to applying. However, the applications were submitted and confirmed received in www.grants.gov, and the district was notified of pending awards for all the colleges for the student portion of the funds. After submitting the applications for the student funds allocation, we were informed that the colleges would receive the institutional portions of the funds only if the student certifications were submitted. Actions were taken to ensure the institutional certifications for each of the colleges were submitted. Institutional funding was received for all 4 colleges. Upon reviewing the funds in late August, we were informed that Laney, Merritt, and College of Alameda had not received the student portion of the funding due to the incorrect OPEID numbers being applied to the student certification forms that were previously submitted. An OPEID number is the Office of Post-Secondary Education Identification Number used by the U.S. Department of Education to identify colleges that have program participation agreements allowing their students to enroll in federal financial aid programs. Though we received a notice informing us of the errors and the deadline to resubmit the student certifications, it was not acted upon before the deadline. We immediately contacted the U.S. Department of Education to discuss our options for providing the corrected forms. In conversation with representatives from the U.S. Department of Education, we were informed that many colleges and universities had not received their funding for a variety of notification errors, and therefore the department was reopening the submittal portal, and extending the deadline for submissions. Each of the three colleges I mentioned, that is Laney, Merritt, and College of Alameda, have successfully resubmitted their certifications for the student portion of CARES, and the funding approvals have been received. All CARES funds have been allocated according to plans prepared by the colleges in accordance with the provisions of the Act. Therefore, in summary, our district, on behalf of our colleges, has been made whole in terms of our CARES funding.
Thank you for that report, Chancellor. Are you going to move? You have other items that you're addressing? Yes. Under? Okay.
Okay, thank you. So now I would like to turn our attention to the aspect of our ACCJC special report, and I'm smiling because we are really excited about working on these and moving forward. So before I do that, let me invite Dr. Jim Riggs to introduce himself. Let me give you a little introduction, if you don't mind. Dr. Riggs is a vice president with PPL Pros, and he is an expert in the area of community college accreditation. We've been working with Dr. Riggs here over the last couple of weeks to review our November special reports from each of the presidents, and to review the district response that will be included in those reports. Dr. Riggs has extensive experience in this area, and he has extensive experience working with colleges up and down the state of California, and we're very grateful to have him with us. So, Dr. Riggs, would you like to share any of your findings or your experiences in working with our presidents here?
First of all, yes, thank you very much. I really appreciate being able to come and speak to the board, and it's certainly been a pleasure working with Chancellor Walter and the four college presidents on this very important project. And I have to say, what I've found is everyone is working on this, really understands the importance of addressing in earnest the Commission's concerns. And what I'm finding is that we're moving toward clearer articulation and really open dialogue on what has been done to address these concerns at each of the colleges and the district office as well. As you probably are aware, there were 8 areas that were cited by the Commission that had to be addressed in a very short order by all 4 colleges and the district. And in addition, there were 6 sub areas. And as I've worked with the college presidents reviewing their drafts, it's amazing what each of the colleges have done, and also the district office, primarily the fiscal office, has stepped up to address these concerns. Now it's a matter in the next 3 to 4 weeks to finalize the reports, to tell the story of what has been done. One of the comments that the Commission made in its January letters to the presidents was what they saw the report that was submitted was a lot of corrective intent, but not much corrective action. Well, I'm happy to say I'm seeing a lot of corrective action as I've looked through these reports, and have had an opportunity to dialogue with Dr. Walter and the 4 college presidents. To give you an example, the first area is in enrollment management, strategic enrollment management. What I'm finding is that the college presidents have worked together to come up with standard time blocks. Well, gee, that sounds easy, but it's not. They've also improved at each of the campus sites their scheduling process. It's easy to get lured into rollover schedules. Well, they've stepped back and they've really implemented what I think are quite sophisticated and effective scheduling processes. And then they've also implemented some very strong support services. One is getting students in the door, the other is to retain the students. And I think they've certainly shown that they have that. And then selectively looking at expanding programs as there's identified needs. So, excuse me. It would ring when it was my turn to talk. So I apologize. So I feel very good about what the colleges are doing in that area. I think as we look at that, what we're looking at is coming up with reports that are uniquely the colleges, but they're covering pretty much the same areas that they're all doing. The other one, and then this is also in the I would have can't think of a better term, but the shadow of history of declining enrollment, and then you couple the pandemic on top of that. So I would say even all the numbers are reported coming in a little lower than certainly what everyone would hope. I think in perspective, it's much better than it could be under all the circumstances. The student success infrastructure to address the student-centered funding formula, basically what you're all aware of is that the state has changed the way it's going to be funding community colleges, which used to be mostly through enrollment. Well, that's still a good portion of it. But then there's the other part, this supplemental area, the SEP metric, which is the financial aid area, and very creative hard work by the student services divisions at each of the colleges is to address maximizing the financial aid that students can receive, and also looking at the numbers to make sure that they're acceptable. So there's some really great programs that are occurring out there in the colleges. And then also completion, and that is how many students graduate, get livable wage jobs, and so on, especially from underserved populations. That area is being looked at. There's again some very what I would call corrective actions being taken place at each of the colleges. Well, I'm not going to go through all 8 areas because a lot of them are areas that have to do with the district, and Dr. Walter has prepared with her staff a very extensive overview of all the things that's being done there at the district office to address that. So that pretty much, I would be happy to answer questions. I know that the college presidents have developed some PowerPoints that would show more specifically what I've referred to. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Riggs. I really appreciate that overview. And so what I would like to do is I'm going to go through a few of my slides that kind of contextualize the district's response. And the presidents will go to also present some of their pieces or contents of their reports. And what our goal would be is to see if there's any feedback. And then we will aim to have the reports, the special reports from each of the colleges placed before the board for the first reading in October, the October meeting. So just realize that what we share with you tonight, again, it's an overview. We're not going to go into detail for every aspect. And then when all of us are concluded, then if there are questions, they can be posed to Dr. Riggs or the presidents or what have you. So I'm going to go ahead and just share my screen really briefly and run through my outline here, and hopefully everyone can see this. So what I'm going to talk to you about is the district response. Again, the Peralta Community College District Office, November 1, 2020 special report. And we're going to be formulating this as an appendix. And as Dr. Riggs explained, the colleges received a letter in January of 2019 And the response to the letter, they asked for the establishing FTS targets and enrollment management plans, establishing student success infrastructure plan to comply with the student-centered funding formula, establishing guidelines to reduce operational overspending and eliminate the structural deficit, adopting a board policy to adopt sustainable fund balances and reserves, adopting a restructuring plan to improve efficiencies, addressing all audit findings, and establishing strategies to improve the management of the OPEB debt, and providing executive level staff turnover analyses and recommendations to retain staff at the district. And Peralta submitted a special report in December of 2019 called the Peralta Community Colleges Integrated Financial Plan 2019 to 2024, a living document. And the intention of the special report was to address the 8 points noted in the letter I just mentioned that was sent to the colleges. In response to that, the commission replied with a letter in January of 2020 saying that the report had not addressed the foundational issues which have bearing on its fiscal health. And we're defaulting to calling them the 6 deficiencies, and those encompass a continued structural deficit, lack of adherence to board policies and administrative procedures, deficiency in reconciliation and financial control issues, key staffing issues, OPEB obligations, and ongoing unaddressed audit findings. They also said that several areas of the report that was presented in December of 2019 had intent but not much evidence. And so the special report also lacked structure, as Dr. Riggs mentioned. And at that time, the commission imposed probation status on each of the colleges. So each of the 6 deficiencies are addressed, providing evidence, brief statements, and corrective actions the district has taken or plans to take at the district level. And the structure of the appendix is to refer to each of the above 6 deficiencies individually and apply a related standard from the ACCJC guidance in submitting evidence to meet the standard. So the 6 deficiencies, again, are here. And so for the structural deficit, we present the evidence that Peralta has risen above its 60% unstable financial position relative to the FCMAT ratings and moved forward to a position that's less than 6%, which puts it in a very stable financial position. We also have a net position presented in our audit report that basically shows there are no remarkable findings and that we are in a stable position there. We have also adhered to participatory governance processes you can see that from minutes evaluating the PCC's financial health from our different organizations. And you can take a look, we can show in our budget that we have used funds previously to cover expenses, and that this year we have a balanced budget in our tentative budget, and we are presenting a final budget, adoption budget for the board in October. As a forward movement, we are looking at evaluating an early retirement program, which is, of course, a negotiated item, and reevaluating our internal alignment with the student-centered funding formula. And the presidents will talk more about this. Deficiency number 2, lack of adherence to board policies. Peralta is adhering to board policies and administrative procedures relative to its financial planning. We are following the policy development policy and board procedure 2410. We're also working with the regular adherence to board policies with the planning and budget calendar. We have a board-approved budget development calendar as well. We have minutes and agendas from the Budget and Planning Council, the Planning, Budget, and Integrated Model group, and agendas and calendars to show that we are adhering to board policies. In terms of deficiency in reconciliation and financial controls, this is our third deficiency. We continue at the district level across the district and offices to enforce internal controls with employee development and through our technology application. And as you know, we've contracted with Oracle to complete a comprehensive system upgrade. We have hired a full-time employee as an internal auditor, and we continue to require internal controls adherence. We've presented presentations of financial reports and cash flow reports to the board, and those reports will continue to be presented to the board quarterly. We've also presented our audit reports to the board, and the policies and procedures for internal control mechanisms are available for our staff. I will say that the district still needs to integrate and institutionalize all of its technology systems to drive these financial controls into what I consider to be normalcy. The fourth deficiency has to do with staffing issues. And for this, we have the evidence of an updated organizational chart demonstrating that key positions had been filled. These included the full-time permanent chancellor, the vice chancellor of finance and administration, vice chancellor of general services, an internal auditor, and a director of purchasing. When talking about CEO's delegation of authority, that's contained in Administrative Procedure 2430, and AP 6100 outlines the delegation of authority for fiscal and business affairs. The board has a CEO succession planning policy 2432, and we saw this in action with the passage of the former CEO to the vice chancellor, the former authority from the CEO to the vice chancellor of finance and administration. It was seamless. An interim chancellor search is to be completed by October 1st. And then prior to the former chancellor submitting her resignation, 2 presidents were hired at Berkeley City College and Merritt College. The 2 presidents at Laney College and the College of Alameda accepted positions at other institutions. The district appointed interim presidents from within the administrative organization at each of the colleges, and an open recruitment is in process for the full-time presidents. We need to, as a district, develop staffing, attraction, and retention plans, which will include attention to equity and diversity, and that is on our plate to further evaluate and implement. In terms of the OPEB obligations for our 5th deficiency, several suggestions and statements, directives, if you will, were suggested by FICMAT, and they've been addressed in the following manner. We terminated and restructured some of our volatile bonds, and that comes through with board resolutions and briefings. We eliminated some of the general fund payments to the OPEB trust, and that's in progress, again, with the 2021 budget. The board approved the actuarial studies and the investment performance reports. We conducted an actuarial study at the estimated rate for the pre-2004 employees, and as well as using modified GASB rules for the pre and post 2004 liability. The annual audit report, the annual enrollment eligibility in the OPEB program still needs to be done, and we were directed to consider eliminating employee health benefits, but that is not applicable for our district at this time because we have collective bargaining agreements in place that cover those employee health benefits. And then finally, we were to contract for an addendum to KNN's 2011 report to update us on the actions related to our OPEB bond program. And this is in progress. The district financial advisors are in the process of gathering the materials and board approvals to put a plan together that would suffice as an addendum to this report. Item 6, unaddressed audit findings. When our district receives an audit finding, it takes steps to respond in a timely manner. We received the audit report for the year ending June 2019 with an unqualified opinion. However, the district is in the process of attending to furthering our internal controls. Again, as I mentioned, being implemented with the Oracle upgrade. And this item, of course, this Oracle upgrade was approved in May by the Board of Trustees. The district continues to inform staff of procedures relative to internal controls in the areas of reconciliation and monthly closing. And we've also hired sufficient staff to adhere to the separation of accounting duties and functions that are required. The district adheres to the board policy 6400, which oversees financial audits. And the internal technology systems allow for internal controls and system access to be granted by employee role. We've changed this so that only particular users are granted particular access depending on their need and their level of employment. So the information and accounting systems are set to be upgraded with an estimated completion and migration time of January 2020. The upgrade will include the finance modules, position control module, student financial aid, and student accounts receivables integration. So those are the 6 deficiencies. And to just give a summary here, we have a balanced budget. We have ongoing planning. For deficiency number 2, we're putting together and imposed corrected and ongoing adherence for board policies and procedures. Deficiency in reconciling our financial control processes, we've corrected and they are ongoing. We are looking at our key staffing issues. These have been addressed and they're ongoing. And our OPEB obligations, of course, have been addressed, but they are also ongoing. And our unaddressed audit findings have been addressed. So with this context, the presidents will likely be referring to the 6 deficits in their remarks. And so I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and go ahead and turn it over to President Don Miller from College of Alameda.
Okay, great. Good evening, President Bonilla, trustees, Chancellor Walter, and other community members. We're excited to discuss with you today the various reports that we're preparing, the November responses required by the ACCJC. And Executive Director Johnson, if I could share my screen, I'll start off with the College of Alameda presentation. Thank you. Just
let me know if you need any help because I can also share.
Yes, Director Johnson, it's saying that it's not allowing for screen sharing.
Oh, okay.
Would you like me to share? Oh, there you go. Okay.
Sorry about that.
Okay, you go ahead then, and I'll just ask you to advance things.
Okay.
So if you would go to the next slide, please. So I won't cover these. These are the 8 major points that Chancellor Walter referred to that the Commission identified in 2019 and that were of concern. For them, the district, including the colleges, had prepared the 5-year financial plan as well as report responses to these 8 action items. I will note, though, that in summer, in discussions with Dr. Droker, the president of the ACCJC, she mentioned the fact that although we will highlight the 6 deficiencies that were outlined in the January 27th letter, that we should also refer to the 8 original areas of concern. So you will notice as you receive the final versions of the special reports that they will refer to these 8 sections as well as the 6 continued deficiencies. 2 of the major items that the presidents will note, because they are very college specific, are the establishing of FTS targets and enrollment management plans, and then the second one, which is establishing a student success infrastructure plan to comply with the student-centered funding formula as announced by the Chancellor's office. Next slide, please. Great. And Dr. Walter already referred to these 6 deficiencies. These, many of these items are primarily district focused. And so what I would like to highlight, though, is that the college presidents, starting in spring, but then really heading into a lot of deep work throughout summer of 2020, discussed weekly and then at many times daily the special reports. The 4 of us collaborated together throughout July and August and into September on writing in a common format, creating common responses where possible, and responses that highlighted the strengths of the colleges themselves in response to the ACCJC concerns. And so there was an iterative process with us, and then we shared with different members of our campus communities. We'll be taking these forward to the shared governance councils on our campuses so that we can continue to receive feedback. And as you will notice in the reports by the different presidents, there have been different processes on each campus to gain full support of the campus constituencies. And we will continue to do so as we submit the final versions of the reports. Next slide, please. So as we go through, we will highlight different areas of strengths for the college. Here, for example, at College of Alameda, we identified the topics of concern expressed by the ACCJC and then corrective actions that were taken. And so here you'll see we talk in our response related to corrective actions about annual discipline planning and scheduling processes, consistent data and reporting, student enrollments during intersession. We've added in sections on dual enrollment and non-credit into our discussion of enrollment management. Then we discussed the SCFF formula metrics, financial aid strategies, AB 705 implementation, guided pathways, our new SCFF funding formula focused enrollment management process, program review, block scheduling done at the district. And then again, we jump into different items that are highlighted, the deficiencies as they've been called, around the structural deficit, for example. And we talk about a balanced budget, adherence to FDF allocations, resource allocation processes on campus, and what they mean for us in compliance with ACCJC standards. Next slide, please. So one example, and we'll just show a few highlights because there's several other reports to get to. But one example from College of Alameda of a college success is the target for student enrollments during intersessions. So we begin showing how we focused in 2015 and 16 on a small amount of FTF, full-time equivalent faculty that was spent for enrolling students in winter and spring intersessions, and how those created 150 FTS for the college and served that many students. Then as you see progression through the years, that gradually increases to where in 2019-20, we increased to 233.1 FTS, and we basically went to 1.5 times the amount of FTF. So it's a great success for the college to highlight how we have found ways to grow even in times of great decline around the state for enrollments. Then in January, we highlighted our process that we started that focuses on the student-centered funding formula as we allocate resources to departments. So we went with a budget allocation model, 3-year average of use of FTF per program, but then we focused on productivity. We focused on student educational plan demand so that as we were looking at courses to be offered in the upcoming year, we knew where students had already indicated that they had need and their desires for specific courses and specific programs. Then we gave a percentage of allocation based on the degrees and certificates awarded in the previous year. The same with course success rates, the same with course retention rates. And so focusing our new model on meeting those metrics and using those metrics to determine how we would allocate funds for supporting instruction. And we did this in conjunction with all of the department chairs on campus through 2 major meetings in January of this year. Next slide, please. So in a continuation of the student-centered funding formula, we identify in the special report which groups of students are disproportionately impacted. That is, those that have a 3 percentage point or greater differentiation from a gap of 3% or greater. And it identifies a whole list of students. And unfortunately, I had a different slide here to show you that shows a great increase as we implemented AB 705. We have a great increase in success amongst several of these identified populations. So it's our African American male population, our Latinx students, our economically disadvantaged, our foster youth, and so forth. And so we show that in the special report as well, that not only do we know who the disproportionately impacted students are, but the great change between 2017 and 18 and 2019-20 when we fully implemented the AB 705. Next slide, please. And then we talk about guided pathways and the great success of having teams of more than 40 faculty, staff, and administrators that built program maps that are intended to shorten the time to degree completion. And we talk about the goals around shortening the amount of units that students take to complete their degrees and what that can mean for the college. And next slide, please. And then finally, we talk, for example, in the section on reducing operational overspending, we talk about balanced budgets at the college. We talk about adherence to full-time equivalent faculty allocations, the fact that the college had no audit findings last year, our planning and resource allocation processes and what they mean for balancing a budget, and then the careful planning for position replacements. So just to conclude, these are just a few highlights. We're continuing to add final pieces into this, final pieces of evidence and final data points that show not only compliance, but our successes, and then our future goals and how we will meet and better the position of the college in each of the SCIF funding metrics. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Miller. And we'll go right away to Dr. Garcia, President of Berkeley City College.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. While Mark is pulling up the presentation, and look, he's so fast. There it is.
Oh,
Wow, your desktop is busy, Mark.
wow.
Oh, the whole desktop? Whoops.
Yes. What you'll notice is for the Berkeley City College presentation, as we were trying to prepare this, we wanted to highlight and share different aspects of the report. So good evening, trustees, community members, and colleagues. Please, next slide, Mark. What's already been stated is that our special reports, the November special reports, are a direct response of the corrective actions that the college has taken with the findings. And as has already been noted, there were 6 broad deficiency areas. And then next slide, please. 8 topics of concern in which the request was that we provide evidence of action. And so what you're going to see, next slide, in the following report is that the collection or preparing the report is something that we definitely need to include as part of communicating to the commission how the college came to submit it. And so what you're seeing here is a slice of the ways in which at Berkeley City College we have been engaging in this discussion. So you all will know that I have been with the district since May 7, 2020 of this year. And pretty much since minute 1, my life has been accreditation, and rightly so. And so with that, in weekly cabinet meetings, and then more recently during an August leadership retreat, we've been spending a lot of time identifying the actions that the college has taken to address the commission's concern. We have been in connection with our overall accreditation steering committee because there is in fact a connection between the work that the colleges are doing for our ICERs and this report. And you'll see that they will, this report is definitely providing some language to include in our ICERs in terms of some of the work that we have done. Our opening College Flex Day had an opportunity to communicate with the broader campus about accreditation, of which one of which was this special November report. I've had a cafecito with the president, and in this open forum, I did embed updates and discussions, again, more broadly on accreditation and introducing some of the topics for the report. And then lastly, throughout the summer, we do have some of our colleagues that are on 10-month contract. I did provide some written messages to the community, just providing updates of the progress towards the completion of this. And lastly, to note here, and each of the colleges is taking this through a similar process, is that the highest college governance body is the College Roundtable for Planning and Budgeting, where the leadership of the Classified Senate, the Associated Students, the Faculty Senate, as well as collective bargaining representatives and administration. This is the highest governance body, and in consultation with Academic Senate President especially, it made sense to host the conversation, the discussions, the input through this group. So here are some of the examples that I would like to highlight for you. Please, next slide, Mark, on some of what Berkeley City College has done. So the next 2 slides provide a lot of detail, and as Dr. Miller has already shared, we've organized it where the left column is addressing the 8 areas of concern, the center column, specific college actions, and then doing a crosswalk right to the deficiency area address. We are making this as clean as possible for the readers of the commission to see how this all works. In a moment, I'll provide some additional examples, and you'll see here in item 7, wherever the narrative is predominant to that of the district, we'll say refer to the district report. And as Dr. Walter has already shared, it will be included as the appendix version. What I want to note here, because I won't have an example, I don't believe, later on, is area number 8. Commission was specifically asking about executive level staff turnover at the district, but you will find that in the reports, we are speaking to the work that the college presidents and the leadership teams are doing to support development and professional training opportunities to maintain and cultivate a pipeline of that leadership on our campus. Next slide, please. So what I want to really highlight is that our integrated strategic enrollment management plan was foreshadowing all of the work that we needed to do. So this 2018-2021 plan was developed and revised by a campus-wide body. And you will see here, I've taken a direct citation of our ISCMP, where this collective body identified that in the face of declining enrollment and still wanting to grow programs and support the community, the college needed to engage in actions to accomplish this. So you'll see here in one that the college is focused on increasing our Pell Grant recipients, and you'll see that supplemental is written in the parentheses because it shows that it's directly connected to the supplemental portion of the student-centered funding formula. The second, California Promise grant recipients, also supplemental. So we at Berkeley City College, but along with our sister colleges, have done a great deal of financial aid reform, and certainly the work and leadership of Vice Chancellor Brown to assist the colleges in the decentralization of the financial aid is crucial to what we've been able to accomplish. Area 3 is addressing FTES generation and the supplemental portion. Area 4, and one of the examples that we do have is around non-credit CDCP. So that is a highlighted program of action for Berkeley City College. And the last two are related to transfer and actions for transfer. Next slide, please. So here are two examples that I want to put in front of you. Again, a slightly different variety so that you could see the breadth of what's happening in the district. The first table refers to our growth in dual enrollment. Berkeley City College several years ago was definitely the college with the smallest number of sections offered for dual enrollment and therefore FTES generation. The college has, we see ourselves as a little engine that could, and so you'll see that back in 2018-19, after following the ISCMP, we have grown from a 28 FTES to 78 FTES projection for this academic year. What you're also seeing in the table is a projection of what this means in terms of real dollars, because part of what the commission is asking is how we are addressing the sustainability. And so again, just from 2018-19 to 2021, you'll see that we're growing from just under $153,000 to nearly $444,000. In the next slide, no, sorry, I'm so sorry, back, John, Mark. I meant to say the next table. Is looking at certificate and degree completion. So you'll see that we definitely have grown from 2016-17 to 19-20, from a total of 866 combined to just over 1,100. But the notable point here to make is that embedded is the annual head count that we have been able to increase our certificate and degree completers amidst a declining enrollment, which I think then shows, again, the intentional actions that the college is taking in a variety of approaches to support student success and, in this case, completion. Now, next slide. This is the one that I like to call the less fancy one, because there's not a table or a graph, but to me, I think it's one of the most critical because it engages institutionalization and it is about governance at work. So what you'll see here is that in the topic of concern, establishing guidelines to reduce operational overspending and eliminate structural deficit, the college has been engaging in deep discussion over the 19-20 academic year especially, where we recognized that we needed to have a clear body, a subcommittee budget body, to be able to bring in all of the plans and the resource requests, combine it into an informed budget process that's connected to the district, and that it's clear so that the campus community can know when I'm doing an annual program update that I know that whatever resource requests we're offering, that there's a clear process. So I'm so thrilled to announce that at our last college roundtable, this process has now come to fruition where the Integrated Planning Committee submitted a proposal to roundtable. Roundtable has endorsed it and submitted it to me. I have approved it, and we are now going to launch in October our very first IPAR committee, which stands for Integrated Planning and Allocation of Resources Committee. And this is great work that has taken place through the governance process, and I always appreciate the opportunity to highlight when governance at work yields institutionalized efforts. Next slide, please. So what you have here before you is we're identifying the timeline for completion. Right now, the College Roundtable just yesterday has taken on the draft for a first read. It's available for campus comment period, and it's set to be taken up for action and endorsement on the October 12th College Roundtable meeting. We are, as a result of the College Roundtable meeting yesterday, I will be hosting a campus discussion Monday evening to be able to show, even from one Monday to the next, the way that this iterative process is moving with community input, all with the goal of bringing this to this body in the October meetings for appropriate and timely submission on November 1st. And with that, I'd like to conclude my particular report so that it can feed right into my colleague. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Garcia. And now we'll have Dr. Besikof from Laney College.
President Besikof, you're muted.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the segue, Dr. Garcia. At this point, I am actually going to go ahead and get into our presentation. And really, I guess what I'll go ahead and do, especially since I'm up third, is I'll bypass the next two slides, which have the 8 points of the original plan, and then also the details that were identified to be corrected from the January 27th action letter. But where I would like to start is really one of the things that was in the feedback we got was clarity within our response, and really not just presenting a plan, and not just showing activities, but really showing the milestones in the areas that we're looking as we go forward. This report is truly an opportunity to share vision. I also think it's an opportunity, as each of our colleges tells the story, to show some things we're doing that will be sustainable. And I think that's something that's very important. I was privileged today to bring our draft thus far to our faculty senate, and I will also be taking it to our classified senate and our student government, and I will also be seeking feedback as we move forward, especially since as we structure the report, we look at responding at a college level to a lot of what is required for this response. As we move forward, though, one thing about the Laney report is that we are being very specific in terms of the goals we want to achieve, and really looking ahead through the 23-24 academic year in areas that I'll be touching on in a few minutes that are very important to us. And that's something that is critical. Along the way, we've talked about having uniformity in our messages, and I just want to take a moment and appreciate my fellow presidents. We certainly have spent a lot of time together, and just certainly it's been something where, at least for my part, I've both appreciated and benefited from it. So anyway, at the first response, and Dr. Miller touched on this as one of the big kind of bulk responses from the colleges, has been this idea to bring clarity and also direction to the part of our original plan that said to establish our enrollment targets as well as an enrollment management plan. One of the great strengths of Laney College and its collaboration has actually been our strategic enrollment management plan. And we're actually moving to a place of, at the end of this year, reaching the sunset of this original strategic enrollment plan and doing the exciting work of assessing and evaluating what's been done to date. And really, as a fellow pillar to that effort, I would add all of the work that's been done with guided pathways, all the work that we have done so far. And really, as we begin to look at our strategic enrollment management plan and our guided pathways plans and the places where we need to go, it's really kind of that image of having back-to-back meetings where you maybe have your strategic enrollment management committee meeting followed by your guided pathways work group, and almost nobody gets up and leaves or enters the room, just because there is so much really cross-pollination with those efforts. Of course, as we move forward, we take again, as Dr. Riggs mentioned, we're moving away from the rollover approach to scheduling and looking more toward the 2- and 3-year schedule plans. I say 3-year because we want to recognize our part-time students and the fact that maybe 2 years doesn't make sense for their plans. So we want to go ahead and be responsive to that and have those 3-year scheduling plans. So we have that projection-based approach to scheduling where we are driven by our past enrollment data to help us plan as we move forward. And as we move forward, we have those schedule plans that have become our guided pathways program maps on our websites. We want our programs to be strong, and we also continue to look at those that particularly have been downward trending in terms of their enrollment. We've got evidence of actions that we've taken, and I'm happy to say in the case of 4 disciplines in the past academic year, they actually improved, and which was great and something to look at. Again, recognizing that approximately somewhere between 4 and 5 and 10 students in our district attend more than one college in Peralta. Really looking at the block schedule and looking at cooperative scheduling and the things that we've done, that's certainly part of our corrective action plan and things that we have implemented. Dr. Miller spoke to intercession as an area of strength for the College of Alameda. Certainly 2 areas of strength for Laney have been our later starting classes. That's an area where typically we've seen if there are 10 seats in the room, somewhere between 8.5 and 9 of those are filled. We are growing our dual enrollment programs. We actually are offering more in dual enrollment offerings this fall than any college in the district at this point. And also, as we move forward and we look at our great career programs at Laney College, and the work that we've done through our CVC OEI grant, we don't want that to end when the grant funding ends, but we want to continue. So these are all very real strategies that have goals, that have tangible goals in terms of numbers through 23-24 at Laney College. One area of strength that I'm pleased to report that I will be sharing within the report itself is our increase in awards over the past 5 years. It's actually been a rate of 30%. And those of you who have read Chancellor Oakley's Vision for Success knows that he called for an increase in awards of 20% within 5 years. So that is certainly something that as we move forward and we look at things such as enrollment management, and also I'll segue to leveraging the student-centered funding formula that we will build upon. Certainly, I think at Laney College, the more we move forward, we want to focus on the schedule of programs and not the schedule of classes. In other words, we want our students to receive the support and the personal attention from the moment they hear about Laney to the moment that they leave us as graduates. And certainly, there are a lot of programs such as Puente, our APAS program, our Umoja Baca program, that provide personal attention to students in a program cohort concept. And this is something that we want to really make very visible and more visible as we move forward to our students. One thing that has been great for us has been the decentralization. And one area, especially for the supplemental portion of the student-centered funding formula that's going to be critical, is our students' participation in financial aid. And just like the other areas, we have set very tangible goals with numbers as we move forward in terms of participation. We are going to continue to track things. I'm going to go a little bit out of order here because I believe the gateway to all these things when it comes to student completion and hopefully then student-centered funding formula compensation or from the state is really our students' completion of math and English. Because for so many of our certificates, for so many of our degrees, transfer math and English is a requirement. So I believe that whether or not we get funded with the math and English portion of the funding formula, having students complete English and math is so critical to their success, and in turn it will be critical to Laney's success. One area that I would call a rising star is our non-credit. We've gone from, during this 5-year period that I mentioned, non-credit numbers were 0, 0, and 0, and then they went to 9, and then they went to 26 in terms of certificate awards. We want to continue that growth, and I think that's something that's very important. But within all of that, we have to stay true to our strategic enrollment management plan and all that we have. What resonates in terms of scheduling, but also the support students receive, from our Welcome Center to our academic support, and really building it around the guided pathways areas of interest, and really treating all of the students who come to Laney in a manner of supporting them so far beyond when they enroll in classes. In terms of our efforts as a college to be fiscally responsible, that is something that is also spoken to in this report, be it training, be it standard operating procedures that we've established toward budget alignment. Things as simple as say a travel authorization request, and having those things work and be effective and have them be timely in terms of our employees. Also, looking at our standard operating procedures and making sure that they align with our board policies and our administrative procedures. But it isn't just making sure that we do it, it's making sure that our employees know it. And that is why, certainly, with all of this establishment of process, we also value the establishment of communication. It was so great back in January, for example, to have the training for our processes and procedures, to have a computer lab for an optional training that was full. And to have folks there ready to go. And tied in with all that, tied in with all of that planning, again, this idea of being true to ourselves, just as we are with our strategic enrollment management plan, and just as we are with guided pathways. Also, at Laney College, we have a very solid program review process. It is the driver of a lot of our integrated planning and a lot of the great work we do. And that's something that we continue to work with as we move toward resource allocation and doing that. So really, in terms of providing action and evidence in Laney's response, there is a lot of being true to ourselves and honoring the plans that we've made so far and continuing the work that has been done so collaboratively. This slide also gives some other details about adherence to some of the fiscal things we've mentioned. And you'll see, for example, that certainly in terms of our fiscal practices, we do want to align with our APs, and we look no further than our parcel tax and the work that we've done there. We've talked about audit findings, and you can see almost within, you notice the condition, effect, recommendation, and action plan. You can almost see this practice of, if we do have them, kind of that teachable moment that helps us move on and be stronger as an institution. You see there also what we have as far as action and evidence as it relates to improving our fiscal, our restructuring to improve our fiscal efficiencies, as well as accountability. In addition to that, though, I want to talk about, because we did, again, the executive turnover was one piece of the report that we needed to speak to. And I just want to say that we had some courageous conversations at Laney at the management level, and a couple of steps that we are committed to taking forward are our entire management team, president, vice presidents, deans, directors. We're all going to be taking the SDSU's Black Minds Matter course, and we're going to be coming back to our management council and talking about it. And I think that's something that's very important. And I have to tip my hat to our Vice President of Student Services, Vicki Ferguson, who, as we were having this conversation as an executive team, suggested we begin reading and coming back and talking. And we're actually going to be starting with the book White Fragility as part of our meetings. So in terms of our executive investment, I think really making, in a manner of equity, making all feel welcome and engaged is something that we are chasing at Laney College. So we do have next steps ahead. You know about the final review, and we look forward to bringing this report toward you. And so with that, I'll close my comments and turn it over to my colleague.
Thank you to Dr. Besikof. And then we'll have finally Dr. Johnson from Merritt College.
Thank you so much. I appreciate Mark for putting that up. I recognize that a saying that once everything is said and done, there's nothing left to say or do. But hopefully I can regale you all with a few good things and as a pilot, make up a little bit of time in the air. So next slide. So I'm not gonna, this has already been discussed very aptly by our Chancellor and President. I do want to talk a little bit about the process at Merritt College and what we did in terms of the institutional review of the special report. At Merritt, we've basically discussed the special report with all the college constituencies, and we're going to continue to do that because our goal is to use the ongoing feedback that we receive from them and from you as a board and others to refine and amplify the salient points. I just want to say the Executive Cabinet Managers Meeting weekly, College Flex Day, we discussed it on August 21st. We had an accreditation day on September 8th. We had 2 fall planning summits where we had the opportunity to discuss the special report, one on September 18th, one on September 25th. Ongoing college in conversation with the president, August 25th and September 22nd. And we have 2 upcoming meetings, the Academic and Classified Senate meeting along with the Associate Students of Merritt College on October 6th and the College Council on October 7th. I'm sorry, I'm going fast. Next slide. So what follows are some of the steps, an overview of some of the steps that we've taken at Merritt, actions that are currently underway, and also some of the activities that we will undertake to address the concerns raised by the commission. Next slide, Mark. So here's an overview. I won't go through each of those things, obviously, but just let that wash over you. A few things I do want to, go back. Okay, a few things I do want to highlight from that list are, I'm going to also talk about our dual enrollment growth because that's a really a strength for the college that we want to build on. Talk a little bit about guided pathways, and then finally I want to discuss the efforts that we've made to stabilize our administrative structure. So go ahead, Mark. Next slide. Kind of look at that. Okay, so you go to the next slide. So very proud and by the fact that Merritt is really we're very strong in the area of dual enrollment within the district. As you can see in those respective semesters that we have accounted for a disproportionate amount of the dual enrollment FTES. And really the key to our success in that area that we want to keep building on are the relationships we've been able to establish with the high schools, the counselors, the principals, with OUSD, district staff, and we've had a lot of success, particularly offering sections of African American Studies and Communications. Those are our 2 strong areas. But I also want to give a lot of credit to the efforts of Maria Spencer as our outreach counselor. And dual enrollment, since it is a strength, we want to build upon it, especially in the summer, for the summer sections, increase our summer sections. And we anticipate that we would be able to add an additional 10 FTS for the summer. One specific program that we are excited about for summer of 21, we're looking at creating, running what's called an iServe Academy, capital I, capital S, and then serve, which is a 5-week curriculum over the summer. And what that really is targeted at African-American males, but it allows them to take courses and gain experience in 5 particular areas: administration of justice, fire sciences, EMT, community social services, and paralegal studies. So we're really excited about the possibilities surrounding that. Next slide. We also are focused on guided pathways. And for those, maybe the uninitiated, guided pathways, really, the basic guided pathways, 4 pillars: clarify the path for the students, get students on the path, keep them on the path, and ensure that learning is happening. And the reason why we're excited about guided pathways and identifying these 8 areas of interest is because, number one, it just moves us away from what's traditionally been known as the cafeteria model of education. So where you just take something here, take something there, just try it. And while we support the desire of students to explore, students need to be a bit more directed. That's in alignment with the Vision of Success goal to reduce the number of total units that students take down to 79, because it's much higher than what it should be. So I know those slides are kind of small, but I'll just kind of tell you. The one on the far left, top left, is Human Services and Public Safety. And this was vetted through our Guided Pathways Committee. We took surveys to try to figure out what would be best to meet the needs of our students at Merritt College. So we have one area, which is Human Services and Public Safety. That's the top left. Middle left in purple is healthcare. Right below that is business and law. The two middle slides, the top slide is an emphasis in STEM. Below that is our people, culture, and society track. And then to the right, as you can see from the masks, liberal arts and communications. In the middle, it's environment, sustainability, and finally, education and learning resources. Next slide. So as President Garcia noted earlier, all the colleges are working to address the issue of appropriate managerial staffing. It was something that was definitely noted by ACCJC in terms of the district, but at the colleges, we're taking it seriously as well. And historically, Merritt College has experienced excessive administrative turnover, which has really forced us to function without a sufficient number of managers. So when that happens, we don't have the adequate administrative support or managerial support or leadership. It limits our ability to oversee departments and divisions and manage projects and meet deadlines and provide the resources that our faculty, staff, and students need. So I noted we were down to 4 administrators in December of 2019. So I'm very, very pleased that we've been able to turn that around and fill out our ranks. In our hiring practices, we've been very focused on getting people who are talented, experienced, and are going to be committed to this college and not looking at it as a way station onto something else. I think everyone is working together, and this may not be a quantitative measure, but I think it's a qualitative measure of trying to change the work culture, emphasizing teamwork, and supporting each other. So since 2020, we've filled 9 administrative posts. So 9 administrative posts in basically 9 months. President, Vice President of Student Services, our VPI, who's interim, our Dean of Counseling, our Dean of Allied Health and Public Safety, our Director of Research, Planning and Research, a Director of Financial Aid, and a Director of Student Activities and Campus Life. So what this has led to is improved communication, efficiency, and accountability. And what we hope, should we be permitted to move forward, what we hope is that by bringing on a Vice President of Administrative Services and a Dean of Enrollment Services, that we'll be able to address key needs at the college. Next slide. So in closing, I just want to assure you, the board, members of the community, faculty, staff who are listening to us right now, listened to this presentation. I just want to assure you that we're all working together. The presidents, the chancellors, the vice chancellors, we're all working very hard to ensure that we adequately address the commission's concerns. And we're also very appreciative of being able to avail ourselves of each other's expertise and support. As Rudy mentioned, we've been meeting on the weekends, socially distancing, but meeting on the weekends to collaborate and really support this process. And we look forward to being able to get feedback from the board members as well. And we'll be coming back in 2 weeks to share our drafts of the November 1st special report. And we're very excited about what we're doing. We're very confident about what we're doing. And we fully expect to meet the mark in terms of the ACCJC's expectations about what we should be doing. So get excited, be happy. We're going to do it. It's going to be great.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson. And so with that, I will ask President Bonilla if she would like to go with questions, and then we'll move on to the next report. Someone's muted, I think. Let's see.
Too many buttons going on here. So too many buttons. So what I said was I wanted to thank all 4 college presidents, President Garcia, President Besikof, President Miller, and President Johnson for your updates, for your reports. Very much appreciative. And I'm going to go ahead and open it up to our trustees. And with that, I see Trustee Brown in the queue.
Thank you, President Bonilla, and thank you to the college presidents. I was very, very heartened to hear that in the midst of the pandemic, we are still making strides with regard to dual enrollment. Very happy to hear, President Miller, that the data that you've been able to collect shows that you're able to help students advance in their academic goals with following AB 705. That was very encouraging news. President Garcia, it was wonderful to hear the progress that BCC is making, as well as even though there's a big dip in enrollment at Laney, the fact that there is some news coming out of Laney that is positive regarding the work that's happening around making a more welcoming environment for the students, as well as trying to get those numbers back and accommodate the students. And I know that there was some disruption with the late start classes. I think those, from what I could see in the enrollment report, that hit the students particularly hard, and many of our students that are underrepresented in higher ed. So I'm hoping that you can continue working to meet the needs of the students there and try and address some of those issues. And if there's anything, and also, you know, thinking about how we can support the students more so that those who are having a difficult time in the pandemic, sometimes choosing between paying for their courses, even with Pell Grants, and working and trying to support their families during the pandemic, that maybe there's something that can be done to accommodate those students more so than has already been tried. So I appreciate the work that's happening at each of the campuses. And also, President Johnson, you're right about those vacancies and having those filled. I'm glad that that's a positive thing that has come about from Merritt. I mean, not that to say I understand, I should say I acknowledge that was very difficult for Merritt. Not you're right, because of course you're right, you're there. Right on the ground, they're managing and the food giveaways, you know, that are happening at Merritt. You're really working to make that a community-focused institution there, that college. So I'm very, very heartened by the reports from the college presidents, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, Trustee Brown.
And so, trustees, if you use the raise hand function, I'll be able to see it. I cannot see you all on the screen. There are too many panelists on the screen for me to see your individual squares. Trustee Reese.
My comments are just a little bit long. Is there anybody else that may have comments that are shorter? Any of our other trustees? If not, I'll just jump right in.
Please go.
Okay, but I'll make it quick. I don't really want responses. These are just kind of comments. First of all, that was so exciting. Again, an accreditation nerd, I am, but that was just really, really exciting to hear. And this might be a little bit as a comment for Riggs, the first comment. It's interesting to look back at this information and get it in this PowerPoint and get it in these PowerPoints, that 6 out of the 8 deficiencies really kind of laid within the realm or purview of the district. And I think what is very telling for me is that the district, not the colleges, submitted the last report, but the commission found the 6 deficiencies that are really within the realm of the district as the ones that were unresolved. So I just find that kind of striking. And here's my one question, and then the others are just comments that maybe you all can think about as you continue to write. And I don't know if Riggs can answer this, or Chancellor, or whoever can, if it can be answered at this particular point. So the technology implementation, which we're going to talk about in a second, that's not going to be live until January 2021, but it's so crucial and so critical to the financial portion of our accreditation or our special report, right? So I guess the one question that keeps on coming back in my mind is that going to affect us from Rig's perspective or anybody? And if we don't have an answer, that's okay, we can come back to that. Do you want me to go on with just the other comments for you all to think about, maybe?
Yes,
Unless
thank you.
want to answer that. Okay. The other ones were just comments that, and there were many more, but I'm making it much more succinct. So with the internal auditor, are we seeing already the evidence of how the internal auditor has helped change or created mechanisms in the financial department, and to kind of see through evidence what the outcome there is? Because I think really demonstrating that, of course, in the report will be great. And then at some point, we'd love to be able to see how that's made an impact or changed. The org chart that you had referred to, Chancellor, I think I just would like us to make sure that we don't necessarily just adopt the org chart that was made from our last chancellor, and I'm sure you're already thinking of this, but that we assess it to make sure that it serves our current and our future needs, as opposed to merely reusing and adopting that. And then as it relates to the colleges, again, fantastic to hear the work that you all are doing in this particular detail, because we've never heard it before. And it is just so gratifying to hear all of you just delving in and doing the great work. Great to see the specific highlights from the colleges. And again, this was already put forth by Trustee Brown, but COA in terms of the intercession, the question for that is how can we make that happen during the rest of the year, right? But those intercession numbers are fantastic. Laney, your late start, and I love the idea that you put forth in terms of not just the scheduling of classes, but the scheduling of programs, because I think that that's often what happens when we do our scheduling, right? We're interested in the classes, but what we really want is completion of the programs, and that sometimes gets lost in the mix. Merritt, your dual enrollment numbers, and that is your focus. And as Trustee Brown said, it's great even during the time of COVID that that's happening. And I'm excited to see how that's going to continue to even get better over time. And BCC, the integrated planning. Thank you for that. And one of the things that I would say all of you are doing, and all colleges do some version of integrated planning, right? But naming it, using the vernacular, making that process very clear so that you've got the program review and the budget requests and the reviews and the approvals and the allocations, making it so transparent and really part of a process that will make all of your colleges so vibrant. Obviously, I get excited about this. So if you can all utilize that lexicon and that process and really crystallize it, that's going to be so important for all of your colleges. And lastly, I think what is really great about this is that given the support and knowledge and coordination that you all have obviously been getting in the past few weeks, it's just wonderful to see you all shine. And the ways in which accreditation is supposed to be not just for the report, not just for the commission, but to really do the work in the institutions infrastructurally for our students. That's what I'm seeing here, the beginnings of. So thank you. You made my night. This is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Would you like me to address the technology timing issue?
Yes, wherever you are, Dr. Riggs, yes.
What I would say here is that you are taking tangible actions and have set aside resources to address the technology issue. I would think the commission would be amiss not to credit you for those actions. I would provide evidence that clearly shows the deliverable time when it's going to be rolled out. So that's how I would play that. All four of the colleges have some things in process that won't be done by the end of December. So I think the commission should expect, as long as there's tangible evidence that these processes are in place with a clear deadline for when it's going to be implemented.
Excellent, excellent. And since the reports or the visits are going to be in March, I believe, of next year, that also allows you this this ability to continue the assessment and the implementation, and maybe even complete it by your spring visits. Great, thank you, Dr. Riggs.
And one other, just a real quick response to what you noted, and that is several of the commission concerns really dealt with district issues, and that's not uncommon in a multi-college district. I spent 10 years as a college president in a multi-college district, and that's one of the challenges with our current accreditation system. So, colleges are accredited, districts are not. And what it takes is clear cooperation between the district and the colleges to address these jointly.
Great, thank you.
Thank you both for that. Trustee Gonzalez.
Thank you. That was a really extraordinary set of reports. And I want to, if I can just take a few moments here, just to think about it from an educator's perspective. What I found extraordinary first was the shift in the way that people in this district are addressing accreditation and the way that the ACCJC is addressing it, and moving us away from a punitive model that says, oh, bad dog, to moving towards an improvement model that says, wow, of course, we all want to do better. How can we do better? Can we get your outside assessment of how you think we're doing? And then taking it seriously. So I think that first of all is really refreshing. I in particular appreciated the systematic way in which Chancellor Walters, you went through the deficiencies and then talked about, and here's what we actually have done. And I think what we're going to really look forward to in the report is the concrete evidence that these things have been done. I heard some of that from the colleges, and that was actually really cool. I loved the budgeting description that President Miller, talking about the way that you're doing FTS and section allocations based on looking at, well, where are the trends? How do we rationalize that? And then the thing that I really appreciated was that a big part of the accreditation issue had to do with shared governance and adherence to board policy. Sometimes if people have heard that and said, oh, board policy, that must be the board's problem, as opposed to, no, it's adherence to our policies. We've got good policies, can you adhere to them? And so the description of that was really important, and in particular, in President Miller, your discussion of the shared governance process. And so you're like, the chairs came up with this. The chairs worked this. This is data-driven based on people who are applying it. And that's what's so important about that shared governance process. And sometimes people forget that is a core part of accreditation. Like, no, we're not making this up. This is ed code and accreditation. And I really like that, President Garcia, your discussion of the round table, like just the metaphor of the round table, but the reality of the round table as evidence that we take this seriously. Shared governance is a real thing, and we actually do it. We model it, and here's how it's working. I love I'll say this very briefly at Laney, that discussion of 3-year planning on the schedule, because so many of our students are part-time and they just take forever, and that's it. It's like, okay, be okay with that. Okay, I'm just going to shut up. Thank you. And I'm just going to look forward to the evidence part of all of this moving forward, because that's exciting. Okay, I'm going to shut up. Thank you. I'm excited.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez. Yeah, definitely excitement from the trustees. And I'm just going to give you a few more seconds as I scroll. Do I see any other hands? I do not at this point. And again, I think we just want to thank all 4 of you for bringing forward such great information and great presentations. Thank you all. Chancellor, I think you have, you have
Yes,
another item.
we do.
Mhm.
We have an item, a presentation from our Director of IT, Antoine Mehouelley, up to give a presentation now, along with individuals from Oracle.
Yes, cool. Thank you, Chancellor, and thank you. Good evening, member of the board and the public. Before we start the PeopleSoft upgrade updates, while Mark is putting the PowerPoint presentation, I would like to have an announcement around the technology master plan that we're working on with CBT. In the month of October, we will have technology town hall around the district at the colleges, and this is sponsored by the Chancellor and also by the college presidents. Berkeley City College, Friday, October 2nd at 12 p.m. We'll have the technology town hall with CBT. We're inviting everybody to be there. And College of Alameda will be Tuesday, October 20th. And Merritt College will be Friday, October 16. Laney College will be October 15. And also the District Office will be October 15. So these dates have been confirmed by the colleges, and we have sent out announcement to the college constituency to participate. So we're inviting everybody to be there. So staying that, I will shift to the PeopleSoft upgrade now. Thank you. Since June 16, we fully engaged and started the project, the PeopleSoft project. And we divided this project in four phases. The first phase is finance upgrade. The second phase, it would be the campus solution upgrade. And the third phase will be the human resources upgrade. And the fourth phase will be our database split, because we always have a campus solution and HR mixed on one database, and that have caused a lot of data issue and problems. Then we are splitting those and keeping them separately. So we have engaged, as Peralta have engaged with Oracle, providing all the information that they requested from our team. I thank the IT team for working diligently and with the functional team at each pillar to provide all the information Oracle needs to do the work that needed to be done. So saying that, I'm going to pass this to Kuldeep, the Oracle project manager, and to go to the detail of the slide and talk about what Oracle is doing right now and where they are. So Kuldeep, you can take it over.
Thank you, Antoine. Before I start, can I get a confirmation if I'm audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for allowing me to present some details towards this heavily technical-oriented project. My name is Kuldeep Yadav. I'm a transition and program management key point contact who is driving this entire initiative in hand with Peralta for this overall PeopleSoft upgrade and migration initiative. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Yeah. Okay, so as Antoine explained, that this overall project, and I'll try to stay away from using any technical jargons and try to keep it on a very high level. But we are going through this overall project as part of phase one. Phase one is heavily technical, oriented, and the objective is to migrate current Peralta PeopleSoft application, all the pillars, to the Oracle Cloud Infrastructure platform to the latest and greatest versions what we have available at this point in time. So what you're seeing is the overall initial objective which was being put forward as part of this phase one mission to accomplish. So once we got the overall requirement from Peralta technology or technical team, we move forward for each of this particular action item. The overall project, as Antoine was highlighting, is kind of not just one project. There are 4 different projects running in this entire one phase. So it's not a project, for lack of a better term. It is a program through which we are going through this particular cycle. Next slide, please. So this is a quick high-level dashboard which we typically maintain for our executive view. Now, as you can see that we are going with the term go live practically means that it is going to be available to Peralta users and community overall on January 25th, that means which is a Monday, and we are working towards that particular objective on different sides. So since there are 4 different projects running, but each has been kind of slashed into a task or a milestone, as you are seeing out there on screen, and we are tracking on each of this milestone with certain type of percentage where it's going, and trying to make sure that each of this is being highlighted with during what date this particular task is going to be completed, and we are tracking it very closely. So at this point in time, there is a great level of coordination which is happening between Peralta technical team as well as Oracle. That way we are not missing any of the information. We, as any typical project goes through, whenever we come through any kind of technical challenges, we have a mutual discussions, come up with a solution, and then move forward. So at this point in time, each of the tasks are meeting its objective, timeline, date, and the scope, and we are moving forward on that one. Next slide, please. So this is again the continuation. So if you will see, overall, there are close to 8 milestones or targets which we are working, and each has been given its own fair share of when either it's going to start or we are preparing it at this point in time to get started with a certain timelines. So once this particular goal is achieved on January 25th, the objective is Peralta PeopleSoft application will be on the latest and greatest technological platform. Users will be able to use all the functionality for each of the 3 pillars which we are talking about, and should be able to utilize all the latest and greatest tools and techniques. Next slide, please. So since I showed all the task and milestones, so this is exactly the same thing, but more of a high level, a 10,000 feet scenario of representation of how the overall project is going to flow. A little bit of a busy slide, but as you can see that we started planning and everything from around June 15th June week, and as we are going to move forward, and the important point here to see is the blue color shade, where it talks about that we are going to go through a major testing period to make sure that all the functionalities which has been provided is meeting our customer or user objective. Can I go to the next slide, please? So for every project to be success, there are certain key points which has to be kept in mind from the very beginning. And for this particular project, we have kind of put some key elements which we are trying to make sure that those are adhered to the guideline, and made sure that each of the tasks are being tagged on a very frequent basis. And one of the key things which I would like to highlight here is to make sure that all the 3 pillars go live on the same date, but also on the testing side. Once we deliver the overall application to our Peralta functional teams, we would expect that there is a proper testing is done. We are discussing, and Peralta technical team is discussing in making sure that each of the testing plan is in place, so that when we hit that specific timeline, teams are ready to test from their side to make sure that each of the business functionalities are being met. Next slide, please. Yeah, sorry, back slide. My apologies. Yeah, this one. Antoine, you would like to add something here?
Yes, I will add also that the Peralta team, we have been assessing the testing, and we have been working closely with all the business unit, HR, finance, and campus solution to assess how we're going to do this testing during the month of December and January. And we are assessing the time we need to put in to get that done. So that is ongoing, and that will be shown to the Chancellor for approval to move forward and make sure that each pillar will be tested properly and before we go live. And also each pillar will, for us to go live, it will require, we put a requirement of each vice chancellor unit, business unit to sign up to the go live. For HR, VC Whitaker will be signing off to the go live, and for campus solution will be VC Brown, who's going to sign off to the go live also, and for finance will be Adele Ahmed, who's going to sign off for the go live. So it's very crucial that Peralta do its part, which is testing and making sure that we hold our Oracle team accountable for what they providing, the service they're providing, that is good to go. So without that, we are here to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. I will open it up to trustees for any follow-up questions. And I have Trustee Handy in the queue.
So can you tell me, when initially we took on this program, we had well, very little information of how this implementation was going to take place and when it was going to take place. But my question is, I know that we had the student module, mobile module was mobile capacity was the most important thing that we needed, especially because our own system tends to fail completely. And we're now at a stage where we're still moving a lot slower than we anticipated. Has that been made priority? I know we have the human resources module, we have business modules that have to go, but in order, everything that we do is related to the students, but if the students cannot access that student module, then we're going to continue to lose them, especially during this time of online classes. They can go anywhere they want, but if they can't get onto ours, there's no reason for them to not register for a class that's next door or whatever. So I'd like to know, where are we in that process? What does it look like? When is this phase one going to be done? And when are we going to be getting to that part that's going to directly impact the students?
So I can answer that question, Trustee Handy. Thank you for the question. So all three pillars, when we go live in January 25th, will be mobile ready. They're all going to be mobile because they're all going to be running on 9.2. So all three mobile modules have been prioritized to be mobile, and we keep in mind the student as a higher priority to make sure that the enrollment and financial aid and all that stuff is working as part of our unit testing. So we came to this date of January 25th because it have been a discussion between Peralta and Oracle. When do we go live? And we have to look at all these activities at Peralta and not to bring down a system that everybody is using at the particular time, where we have the academic calendar that we need to look at. We need to look at the HR processes. We need to look at payroll processes. And after talking with all the business unit, then we agreed to this date that this is the best date that would have less interruptions when we go live with all three pillars. And that's just to say it again, that all three pillars will be mobile ready in January 25th. That's the goal.
Okay, so a question. So what was that date? That's a January date.
Yeah, January 25th.
January 25th. And school resumes what date? Classes resume what date?
I don't have that with me. Let me look.
Because my question is, why wouldn't they do the migration in December when classes are out? And that's the best time to test a system, because we won't have so many people impacted by, and we actually, for $6-7 million, we expected that migration is going to go smoothly, correct, Oracle? But why would we risk the having to interrupt at the end of January, when everyone pretty much is vacated for December, especially with COVID, no one's on time. That seems like that's the most opportune time. We've had 2 disruptions. We had a major one, 2 days ago? That I guess was Microsoft's challenge, but we've had them before where we've been down for 5 days, if not longer. And that was a great impact to the district. But I know that most times migrations are planned for weekends or over holiday breaks. And I'm just curious as to why we would not jump at that opportunity.
Yes, I can I can answer the questions. After consulting with the business unit, payroll, why we go in all 3 modules at the same time? Because there is dependency on all 3 modules. We cannot go one and leave one behind. So when we met up with the business unit, payroll have the busiest activity during the December date, and they said we cannot shut down the system at that time because there is a lot of things they're running. So we talked about it, and we decided to keep the December time for testing, and also we keep in mind testing, and the employee needs to test and also perform the duties they need to do on their day-to-day work. So that's why we are planning for the month of December and January to do much of our testing and validate the system before we go live. And that is crucial for the success of this project.
And let me just add right quick, Antoine, we have the lovely information in the chat regarding the start date of January the 25th for classes.
I thought I saw January 11th.
Oh, well.
It's actually the 25th, excuse me for interrupting. It is the 25th.
Oh, okay. Wait a minute, I had that. Where did that go?
Trustee Handy, do you have a follow-up question?
No.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. Trustee Gonzalez?
Thank you very much. This is helpful in some ways, very technical in other ways, and I can see trying to find that balance is a bit of a challenge. One of the things that I'm really appreciating is that there's some rationale being given for this date. Now, does it make sense or not? Sounds like it does, so that's fine. And I'm not here to question that. Here's the challenge for me as a trustee, okay? We've been sold so much BS about technology over the last 15 years that it's difficult to trust what we're told, okay? I'm just straight up with you on that, right? I think somebody pointed out to me today that in the May meeting when we were approving this, I said, well, we were promised the moon and the stars, but only ended up with a little piece of asteroid. You know, so I'm in the prove it to me mode. And for me, the simplest way of doing that is every board meeting, give us a Gantt chart, the original Gantt chart, and then show us what if you hit the deadlines. I don't know what this term means or that term means, but you all have set those and you put dates on them. You've said this is when it's going to get done, and at the end of the day, boom, we're going to hit that target. That's all I want to see, because I don't know enough. Well, there's one other thing I'd like to see, and I'll just say, look, when this contract got negotiated, it was Delisle Warden who negotiated this, and he's gone. He was the technology dude. So who's watched bird dogging this from the legal end now that he's gone? So I don't need an answer to that right now. I'm just raising it as a question. So it's a long evening, so I'm going to just stop my questions. I don't even need an answer to any of this right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez. Other trustees? It looks, Trustee Handy.
Hey, I'm actually with Nikki on this. This was we were supposed to have, we do not have a CIO. And it's laughable in the industry that you would approach a $7 million contract with no one in charge. And that's what we have at this point, because it requires a CIO, not a director position. And it's no shame to that person, but it's negligent on our part, because right now we have a consultant giving us a presentation about their end of deliverables, where it actually should be a CIO who is or a technical architect. We've had 2 positions, we've had 1, but we've never had no one filling those positions. So as we had discussed before, and we were promised, it doesn't matter who brought it to us or who the contract was, we haven't moved forward, and we know that we still have a major position that needs to be filled. Consultants do not direct employees. And so we don't have someone on our side, Nikki, to make sure that our best interests are being moved. And having been involved in this field and listening in on conversations internationally for technology for many, many years, we're really vulnerable, because we should be driving towards our needs as opposed to being reactive to what we are being told. So I think it's very important that we look at this and get what should be in place. And I would also like to see in the future, again, the liability list and how much money we're spending for outside consultants. We probably exceeded the salary of a CIO at this point, because when these things go down, we don't have the experienced person in place. We have a placeholder, but we don't have an experienced person in place. And on the other thing too, I did look at the link that was on there. And if the dates January 11th through May 28th are not accurate, then our website, our webpage, or that link that you see in the chat needs to be corrected. So we'll stay tuned and see what it's going to look like.
Thank you, Trustee Handy. Trustee Gonzalez, is that your hand in the queue again?
That is, but I'll defer to anybody else who wants to speak, because I've already spoken. But otherwise, I'll say it and you'll just be done. So look, that deal was inked under somebody else's watch. We're rooting for our district. We have the person that we have at the head of this district, and we have confidence that she will do the best job that can be done with where we are right now. And let's hold a high standard and just do everything we can do to support that, meeting that goal. And that Gantt chart would be really helpful. If we're losing it early on, let us know. Don't hide that. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Gonzalez. And I would, to move us forward, but I would also like to echo the sentiments brought forward by Trustee Handy and Trustee Gonzalez. Again, tell us what you're going to do. Show us what you're going to do and how you're doing it. And right now, this particular presentation, albeit sounds well, it needs to be juxtaposed to the original timeline that was given to us. Otherwise, we don't have sufficient information in front of us. But I appreciate the update, and we look forward to additional updates coming very soon. Chancellor?
Thank you. Thank you for that. And I've noted the feedback as well. And I appreciate the trustees' comments. And so with that, I think we will move on to our item, if you're ready, move on to presentation on enrollment.
Yes, please. Thank you so much. We will move to, for the record, item 3.1, Peralta Enrollment Report.